Hello guys, this is Sahil. So as the first session was of Flutter went over the basics of Flutter, what Flutter used to be and what Flutter had in future, and means what are the future possibilities in Flutter. So now, as we as promised you that in the next session we'll be coming up with the actual coding practices in Dart and Flutter. So the first thing or the first foundation before starting any of the languages, that you should know the core of its language. So the what we feel here is that the main language which is powering Flutter is Dart. So in this session, we are going to go over Dart essentials. So means Dart essentials. Do not think this session as in point of view of that like you will be learning everything about Dart, but this session will be enough for you to start coding in Flutter for using the Flutter framework. So while to this journey, in this session today, we are going to learn about everything which is required for to make a Flutter app with using the language Dart. So it won't be like this that after learning this session or after going through this session, the Dart essentials, you will be able to write a dynamic programming problem in Dart, because Dart is not made for that. But after going through this session, whatever we have learned in this session will be pretty much enough to get started with Flutter. So to get enough bandwidth, I'm just going to switch off my video for now. And let's begin for this session. So the agenda for today's session is first of all we are going to short interview overview about what is Dart, then how it is different. So the second point is very important. The third point is basics of Dart. This is where from the third point the actual coding practices of Dart will start. The fourth point is the coding in Dart. We will be actually coding in Dart, and the fifth finally we'll be writing a program in Dart, which will be actually the sum of all the 3 points, all the basic 3 points of coding. So first of all, what is Dart? So as we all know that it's in programming language developed by Google in 2011. We have discussed about this thing in the last session one also, and it's a client side development. What we can say that it's in client side use development language. So majorly to develop UI or develop any cross platform things, Dart is used. So this was just for overview of Dart. If someone is new to this session, they can just go over these 4 points, and this is very easy to understand. But the main part of today is how is Dart different. So you might know that you might think that why actually Flutter decided to go with Dart, the new language. Why didn't they use C++, Java, or any language which was very well established from early on only? So there are three things. So there are multiple things actually, but the main three things are multi-purpose, asynchronous, and object-oriented. So, but first of all, we should understand that there are always stable releases of Dart. What I mean by that is that in every single month or every single year, there are Google engineers who are making stable releases for Dart. So it won't be a case that you are running a version of Dart and it is not working on your PC or on your Mac. So the language is stable. The second thing is it is multi-purpose. So in the previous session also we have discussed about the multi-purpose thing, that it can be used as a front end and it can be used as a back end too. So third thing is asynchronous. So this is where the major focus of this session should be and is that it's an asynchronous programming language. So what I mean by asynchronous is that it doesn't wait for the next thing. It doesn't wait for the first thing to complete and then goes to the second thing. It works on a callback mechanism. For example, if there are 10 lines of code, so the first line of code, if it takes 2 seconds to run, so the compiler won't wait for 2 seconds to come on the second line. It will just fire up the first line. The thing will go in backend, and the second line will also work in backend. So simultaneously, tasks are done. This is just a basic overview I'm giving on asynchronous. But as we progress in the session, we'll get to know in actual detail what is asynchronous programming and how to implement it in Dart language. So the fourth point is it supports object orientedness. So it is an object oriented programming language. So this gives us all the benefits of object oriented programming language, such as polymorphism. If you want to abstraction by private and public, all the different things. It's an object oriented programming language. So we can say the 3 points: multi-purpose, asynchronous, and object oriented programming. These 3 points are just make Dart different than other languages. So this is another point, because we have what why we have kept this point null safe Dart as a different slide is because null safety, as we know, is a very big issue in a client side development app, because If, for example, anything remains null while developing an app, if you have a basic developing knowledge while developing an app, so for example, if so it has the power to crash the app also. So what Google engineers thought that we'll be having our null safe feature. So what they did was they shifted Dart to null safety. Earlier in that one, Dart was not null safe, but when they shifted Dart to null safety in 2.0, it has great benefits. But this was just an overview about null safety. Now let's dive a bit deeper in null safety. So what are some? These are the three. So first of all, let me explain you in very detail what is null safety. So null safety means that no variable or nothing in that can be initialized as null. Whenever you initialize anything, it should have a value. When value of any variable, you can't set it to null. So null kind of thing is not available in Dart. So every variable or everything in Dart should have some value or should be initialized time of at the initialization state or at any point, because if you are not initializing it to some value, it might be a case in future that you forget to initialize that and it creates a nuisance for you in the project. So this is the main principle of null safety, that no variable or no thing or no object in Dart can be initialized as null. You have to always initialize the object with not null, or the variables cannot be null, nothing can be null. So that is null safety. So why the term null is understandable, but why safety comes in? So safety is because whenever we, for example, in Java or C++ languages or any other front-end languages, if you also think about that, whenever we initialize something with null and in between, if we just fumble up while initializing it with something else, then there are chances that it can create a nuisance in the project. So for example, if we just forget to initialize an image, so while loading it, it won't load the app, and the app won't even boot up. So this function of null safety provides a safety to the app also, that it should not crash in it. It should not crash in the initial booting process. And also there are features in Dart like what we can say incremental adoption and fully sound. So second and third are that only, they are just features. So incrementally adopted is that, as we know, Dart 1.0 or the first version of Dart was not null, and the second version of Dart is completely null safe. So the Google team of the Flutter developers and the Dart developers, they thought they will be having an incrementally adopted model, which will be trying to shift the code base of a not null Dart repository to a null Dart repository incrementally. So let me repeat this. This was a bit confusing. We will just what I say was that they thought of a procedure that they will be incrementally shifting, means step by step we will be shifting the procedure or the not null means not null safety code to the null safety. So this is a feature available in Dart, and this is very useful when we think about an organization, because in an organization it is very hard to change the code from not null safety to null safety code. So finally, it is fully sound. Fully sound means now, as of now, it is fully sound means whenever you start a new app or new Flutter app or new Dart programming language app in any of the compiler, it will be fully sound. So you do not need to worry about null safety. You will be always learning null safety from now. So, as we already discussed, that this session will be going over asynchronous programming. So, but what is asynchronous programming actually? So, talking about asynchronous programming, just first let me give you about overview about synchronous programming. So, whatever languages we were learning till now, or you might be learning till now, for example, for example, C++, Java, and Python. These are the three famous languages which we are learning. So, talking about these three languages, all the three languages are synchronous. What I mean by synchronous is they work in sync. For example, if there are three lines of code, so the compiler knows that first it needs to finish the first statement. Afterward, it's when the first statement is been finished, then it comes to the second statement. When the second statement has been finished, then it comes to the third statement, and so on. The flow goes on. So the problem here in programming is that, for example, there are three functions. The first function is to get the data from database. The second function is to two functions. First function is to get the data from database, and second function is to what we say to show it in the UI, the presentation layer. So if, for example, the first function takes 30 minutes. So showing what I'm in the worst case I'm telling. So what about showing that UI to the user? The user won't be waiting for actually 30 minutes, because minutes the compiler will be scrapped and the code will be, means it won't be of any use. So this is just a one drawback. There are many drawbacks of synchronous programming, and even pros are there, but pros are there for different reasons. So why is asynchronous programming came in? So what asynchronous programming says is that everything works on. So you can see here that these are the number of tasks. So first task, second task, third task, and fourth task. So for example, first task took 12 seconds, 20 seconds, then 7 seconds, then 10 seconds, then 8 seconds. During the first task, the compiler needs to wait for the 20 seconds, then the second task starts, then the third task starts, and then the fourth task starts. So you can see that it took total 45 seconds to complete four tasks. But in an asynchronous programming language, this analogy, you take an analogy that this is the first line of code, this is the second line of code, this is the third, and this is the fourth line of code. So the whenever compiler, it just gives an, what we can say, callback to the compiler that this do this process in the backend. I'll move to the second task, and it registers a callback that do this process in the backend. I'll do the third task. So like this, the callbacks are attached, and all the things in parallel they go ahead. So this is the concept of. You can see that the time is almost reduced to 60% from 45 to 20 seconds. So these are some benefits of asynchronous programming over synchronous programming, and means why Dart is asynchronous is we are going to learn in the next slide, or in the further sessions also it could be possible, because if you think about an app, whenever you are going through this session, so always just have a broad perspective in mind that whatever we are learning today for Dart, it is actually for the bigger purpose, to solve a bigger problem. The bigger problem is to learn Flutter. So while making a UI in Flutter, so you will notice that there are some cases where, for example, we are getting the data from the database and we have to wait till that time, and afterwards, after the waiting state, we have to show that yes, the this is the data here we have got. So in that between, till the time when data is coming and data has came, the between timestamp is there. So in that timestamp, what we do is very important, and how we show the output to the user. For example, if data is coming from a server, we should show a indicator that yes, loading, and afterward it came. So this is where synchronous cannot help in, because it just goes with one thing at a time, and one thing finishes, afterward the second thing starts. So I guess I am clear here. So now, not we won't be talking very much now. We'll jump straight into the basics of that. So before going into the basics of that, I'm just honest telling that I'm using VS Code, and I have a Dart extension installed in it. You can use dartpad.com if you are using an online compiler. If you want to follow along, you can use VS Code. You can use any compiler which has, it's just the case Dart should be installed in your machine. So better if you don't have Dart installed in your machine, you can go on a Dart compiler and start compiling your code. So few more things that if you are familiar with any of this, it's well and good. You will feel like that yes, it's similar to that languages. So this is a benefit, added benefit, if you are familiar with programming, because in basics of that we are going to go with the basics of what we can say, the familiar processes like loops, print statements, variables of that. Afterwards, we'll go to the more complex session in this session only. So, and the third thing is that if you are going to follow along with me, do not think that whatever part of Dart we are learning in this session is to get a mastery in Dart. We are not intended to do that. We are intended to make you familiar with the Dart required to make a Flutter app. Means once you are finished with this session, you won't be thinking like to go and learn Dart once again to learn Flutter. You can just deep dive into Flutter, and I would suggest that to learn Flutter, just learn a basic part of that which is required, and afterwards just deep dive into the Flutter thing. And as much as you want to go in Flutter, you can go, because that's beneficial for you. But learning that to its most is, there are many things to learn in that. It would take a month to learn that. So I hope I've made my point clear. So just if you are following along, you can go on dartpad.com and just search on Google Dartpad and you'll get a Dartpad online compiler. So basics of that. So I'll be shifting to my VS Code. So what we are going to see in this basics. So we are going to see these points. So first thing is how the print statements work in Dart, because if you want to show something on the output, we need to know how the print statement looks. Second thing is data types in Dart. What are string, int, list, map? I know this might be familiar with you. Just the syntax is important to learn here. Then we are going to go over variables in Dart. Then we are going to go over classes in Dart, and then public and private function in Dart. So in this, I do not think more than this is required in any case in Flutter. So once you get familiar with this, this is just a basic. We are going to go over loops also, the final problem statement as we have discussed, and async and await, the most important thing. So if I might hurry in this session because of time constraint, that you should means think like this learning. If you want any material, it's very available and online. So just think like this is an tutorial which is guiding you through that what things will be used in Flutter, and if any queries are then we can have a Q&A session at last also. So the first thing is the print statement in Dart. So first of all, to start any language, we have a main function. So if you guys have basic programming knowledge, you know what is void. So void is not written anything. So to write a main function, just we have to write void, means it is a return type which is not returning anything. Then going to the main. Main is the function which boots up the program. So and the curly braces to come inside the program. So you might feel like that yes, it's similar to C++ and Java kind of thing. So yeah, I already told that if you are familiar with any of the thing, it will be easy for you. So now to write the print statement is very easy. We have to just write print, and inside that we can give anything. So for now we are giving a string. What is string? If you do not know, we'll be discussing in the second one as we already discussed. So I am just writing Flutter. So to run this, if I run this on the compiler, you will see that Flutter has been printed. So this is very, very basic about any language, or you can say you can type anything. What do you say? Hello world, and run it, and the hello world gets printed. So this is the basic thing. To output something on the console is the first thing in any language. Void main is very simple thing that it is not returning anything, and this is the main function from where the program starts. The curly braces are means inside this. If you want to give any arguments or parameters, you can give it to this. But even in Flutter world, or if we go into the what we say the actual framework of Flutter, you will see the simple things only working in Dart. Okay. So the print statement is Dart is very clear. We can print anything inside this. Whatever we put it inside it, it will get printed as simple as that. So the next thing is data types in what do we say? Data types in Dart. So data types in Dart, there are multiple data types, but the mostly used data types will be string, integer, list, and map. So let us go over them one by one. So first of all, if we talk about string, so what is string? String is a what you can say combination of characters. So what is a character? Character, you know that A, B, C, alphanumeric character 1, 2, 3, or any symbols you can take. They are called as characters in any programming languages. So for example, when I'm writing hello world inside a print statement, I'm writing actually a string inside a print statement. So I'm telling hey compiler, just print this string. So what is string? String is a data type of combination of characters. So H is a character, E is a character, L, L, O, and everything is space. Even this space is also a character. So those combination of characters is a string. So how do we denote a string? So we denote a string by a single brace, single commas is also okay, or either with double commas is also okay. If you write this will also work. So it's flexible. You can use the what we can say the single commas or the double commas. Both are fine. How to define a string? So when string s is equal to Flutter, we can do that also, and we can write print here. So simply this will also work. So what we did was we assigned string data type to the variable s. So this is just plain English. You can understand it. I won't be focusing more on that. So string s is equal to Flutter. Is equal to means we are assigning the value of as Flutter. So I told you that cannot be null anytime. So we have to assign something to it, and we will be printing s, and string is printed. So the next thing is integer. Integer is very clear to. I guess we do not need to put more light on this. If you write int I is equal to, we can have the value of integers like negative to positive. There's a range there also. So 142. I would say 142. Sorry. 142, and if you're going to print this will also work. See, so this is an integer. So these are the very basic two types. What do we say? The data types of any languages, the string and integer. There are different float, decimal, but they won't be used in any cases. I'm telling you. Or if they are used also, they are very easy to write. So these are the two. Now the not primitive, what we can say, the reference, or what we the derived data type, the list and map. These are the two very important things in that I would say, and I would like to means. Have a bit more discussion on these two. So, what the first is list. So, whenever we are defining a list, we need to tell that what is inside this list. So, for example, we can either keep integers, either keep strings, or either keep a map, or either keep a list. Unlike Python, if you guys any of you guys know Python, that in Python we do not need to define anything. If we are making a list, we just make a list. We can put anything inside that, but in that it's prohibited. So we have to define a data type of list, for example, and we do that by like this. If, inside an square, what we can say triangular basis, we write, for example, string. So this is list of string. I would write a name is equal to, for example, this is an empty list. So we can write flutter, flutter 2, flutter 3. So this is the basic list. So let me go over this once again. I will write the print statement. Okay, this is the thing that first of all, what I have did here is that I have made a data type list in which there will be strings only. So I have wrote string, and I have given the name as list, and I have initialized it with a list of three strings: flutter, flutter 2, flutter 3. So this is very basic thing. Once again, if I want to print the list again, the same thing will be printed here. As you can see, there are different functions of list dot. If you just did what we can say dot, we can just print the length of the string. Length is 3. If you want to get is reversed, but this is an important thing. Why I'm not going in detail of this, that then different thing like iterables of string will be coming up. So I won't be going in this detail. So you can do anything with string. If you want to run a for loop and get all the things printed inside this, we are going to do that also in the next thing also. Okay. So this is a list of strings which is initialized with the three values, and we are printing it. So this is, I guess, very clear. So next comes is map. Map is very important. So what is a map? Map is a key value pair. So when I say key value pair, then it comes inside the curly braces. So key value pair is dictionary in Python or hash map in Java and C++. If you want to compare a map with the different programming languages, so I would say dictionary in Python and hash map in Java and C++. So starting with the map, how do we declare the map? Just we write map, but inside this map we have to now have two things: what will be the string type and what will be the key type. So for example, string is the key is a string, and the value is integer. Right, I write is map and equal to, inside the curly braces I'll write everything. Just to give here I'll write map, and this will be printed. Okay. So now we have an empty map. So I want to throw some light once again on this because this might be confusing for someone. So talking about map, the key will be of type string always, and the value will be of type integer always. So the key will be, for example, one, and the value will be one. It's allowed because the key is of type string. The value is of type what do we say? Uh, Integer. Then if we go to if I try to write something else, like if I try to write string, so it just gives me error. The element type string can't be assigned to map value because the value type is int. So it doesn't allow me to do that only on the first place. So this is a good thing. So if we define it very right, okay. So if I print the map, you can see what happens. So one will be linked to one will be linked to one, TW2 will be linked to two. So this has many use cases. So if you want to iterate over maps keys, you can do like map dot keys, and you will get the what do we say, the keys of the map, and you can iterate over that. If you want to get map dot values, you do like map dot values, and you get all the values of the map. So there are different functions in the map, but the main what you say objective of this session is not to go over that. The objective is that to just get familiar with whatever things are in that, and just to get familiar with the context and what do we see in that. If you're going over any of the thing in any if you're looking over any of the program, you should understand what's going on. If in case you are very interested in this thing, what are the functions of every data type? There are multiple, I would say hundreds of functions for every data type, single data type to manipulate, which are already inbuilt in that. In Flutter we might need that, but on time we can just think of the code and just we can write it just by dot and tapping the function, you'll get it. So the data type string and int are the primitive, and they are the derived data type because they use the primitive type. So there's two things clear. So now what is a variable in that? So for example, I'll do a good thing here. I'll just remove this map and I'll type var. So so what do you think what will get printed here? The same thing will get printed here. Uh, so what that says is that you do not need to define a data type here. You can just define the variable as var and it will automatically predict. So when I hover over map, it shows that map of string as int, because it has interpreted that string is linked with integer already. Okay. So what is a variable? Variable is a place where we can store value, and variable automatically gets the data type of the data which is stored inside the variable. So I'll repeat it once again. What is variable? Variable is a place where we block of memory where we store our data. In that, we do not need to explicitly define the type of the variable, because the art compiler is very smart enough to get that whatever data has been stored inside it will be just what we can say, the data type will be assigned to the variable. So this is map is a variable, we are printing a variable. So if we just print it once again, 1 and 2 will be printed. So variables are also clear. So I guess this is very basic we are going over. So next come the point of classes. So classes in that, for example, if you want to create any class, so what is a class? I guess class is a blueprint which contains some functions and which contains some state variables, and we can manipulate or hover over that. So just to make a class in that, you have to write class. Uh, Class is a keyword, and afterwards you have to write the name of the class. For example, Flutter, and there's the curly braces. So this is the thing, we have created a class. So inside the class there will be functions of the class, there will be variables of the class. So for example, just do not so what we'll do is that we'll mix these two things, classes in Dart, private public functions in Dart also. So I'll for example, if classes is clear, what is a class? So class in Flutter is just in blueprint inside which the functions will reside and the data of the class will be residing. So there are multiple uses of class that we'll be learning in the Flutter session only. But what is actually a class? So class is a blueprint, and inside which the functions and data of the class is preserved. So starting over the functions of class. So for example, there is any function. How to define a function? So first of all comes the data type. So return type, what the function will return. For example, the function is going to return a string. I write string funccidon function one. This do not require any parameter. Inside the function will return Flutter. So this is if you might feel this is confusing, I'll go over it once again. So this is the class. Till class, I hope everything is clear. So I have made a function with name function one. There are no input parameters, and this is returning Flutter. So return statement just returns thing. And what are we returning? I hope the data type is very clear. Data type is string. So this is a function. Okay. So inside a class we have made a function one, which returns a string named Flutter. So how to access this thing now? Because it won't be of any use if you are not able to access this thing. So when we go inside this, so we have to write Flutter, because once we write Flutter, then afterwards we have to click, because now we have just initialized the class, and if we go on the dot operator, it will just show us the function one. Once we click on the function one, I hope that thing will be printed. So see, we can see here that Flutter has been printed. So class Flutter, this is the class, the blueprint of an object. This is the function one. We have created the function inside the class, which is returning something. When we go into the main class from which our program will be booting up, we'll just write print. Inside the print statement, we have called the class Flutter with curly braces. This is how we call the class, and inside the class we call the function one. So what function one returns is Flutter, and the print statement is printing it. So now if for example this thing is very secret to you, I guess I will write here uh, XYZ, I will write. So this is an password for you, and you do not want to return it to an thing outside the class. So what you can make is, so this is a public function because anyone outside a class can access that. So, but if you want to make this in private, so there's a simple thing. We are not writing here private or public kind of function keyword. Just we have to write an underscore near it. So as soon as we write an underscore in the function name, this is not accessible. It just shows that method function one isn't defined for the Flutter class because we have told that this function one function is only private. Means private means only accessible inside the Flutter class. For example, if we want to now we want to make a different function, string function to return function one. So this is allowed. Means we are accessing a function which is private inside the class. This is allowed, but this is not allowed. So if you want to write here fn2, so this is allowed. So the same result will come, but this is how this is how we get abstraction in the thing. So this will be used very much in the Flutter code or everywhere where we will see. So whenever you see a underscore near a function, then this is a private function. So this was the point I was going to make here. So I hope the concept of class, public, and private functions is clear. There is a lot more to this. We are not diving actually in deep to this, just to get you familiar with the basic context or basic syntax of Dart. So I guess yes, the basics of Dart are clear. So the next point is loops in Dart. So in any programming language, we require the thing called as loop. So in Dart also we have very basic thing. There's a for loop, there's a for each loop, there's a while loop. So whenever we want to start with the code, we will write void main and this. So if you guys are familiar with C++ or Java or Java or Python, so this syntax will be looking similar to this. So if you want to write a for loop, so first of all we are going to hover for the for loop. So so now we have to define from where the for loop will start. So int I is equal to 0, I should be less than 5, I plus plus, and etc. So let me explain this. This was very fast, I guess. So what we have did is inside the for loop we require three parameters. The first parameter is from where the I value will start. The second parameter is from till where the I value should be, and the third parameter is how to increment the I value. And if we are just going to print this thing, sorry, this goes like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it started with 0, then I plus plus happened, so it went to 1, it checked I is less than 5, yes, 1 is less than 5, so 1 got printed. Then I incremented once again, I went to 2, 2 is less than 5, yes, so 2 got printed. Like that, 3 is less than 5, 4 is less than 5, but when I was printed as 4, then also I went to I plus plus, so I became 5, and after becoming 5, it checked that is 5 is less than 5, so option was no, so it came out of the loop. So this is the deciding criteria from where the loops end. If this is I would say if this is I is less than infinity, so infinite loop will be there. But infinity value aren't allowed in that. So one good thing here in that we can do this that we do not need to explicitly what do we say explicitly give the data type to the I value. So what we can do is just we can write a var here. So the Dart compiler is smart enough to understand that var I is equal to 0. So 0 is a data type of int, so int is already assigned. So this is a smart practice we do in that. So the same output will be there. So I guess the for loop is clear. So now for each loop. So for each loop, for that we will require a list. So we will be making a list of integers. But once again, we are not going to like list of integers. We are going to like var list is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So compiler is smart enough to understand that this is a list of integers. So this is okay. So we are going to remove this thing. So for example, how if you want to just iterate over all the values of list. So this might not be possible. This is possible, but code is a bit bigger to write for loop and access every element inside a list. So what we'll do is this: we have a function list for each. So we get n elements. Just as quick as we write for each, so we get element. So element is this. So we just write print element, and the same thing will be happening. See, so what we did was we just assigned a list. This is the self-explanatory part. In the list, there's a function called for each. Instead of for each value, it returns in value. So element is this value. If you hover over element, it's an integer. So this is an element. So element. So whatever we want to do with the element, we can do it. So just we wanted to print it. So this is the for loop. The addition to the for loop is the for each loop. So for each element inside a list or inside a map or inside anything. But this is the thing. The for each loop is only over the primitive data. Oh, sorry, the derived data types like list and map. So only list and map can use this because this is in function, not actually a loop. But why I was going to means why I explained this is because I feel this is important at some till some extent. So the function for loop for each loop is also given. So for each value, it gives us the value and whatever we need to do with the value, it's on us. So coming over the while loop. So while loop is like till when the condition is true. So while in for this we have to define a variable ahead. So I am defining a variable I is equal to 0. I will write I less than 5 and uh, print will be going to the same logic, print I uh, and I plus plus. So what first of all let us run this code. So we get the value to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So first what I have did in the fourth line is I have defined a value of I as 0. Then I have checked while it's saying I is less than 0. So print and now I value is 1. So it again comes to this I is less than 5, 1 is less than 5 years. So similar to the for loop, but there is a condition and we have to put an increment here. So what if I do not put an increment here and I just run it? This is an infinite loop. This will never stop. You can see it will never stop because I is 0. If I is less than 5, print I. So I is always less than 5. So because I is always 0, so 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 will be always printed. So we do not have to do things like this because while using a while loop, we have to just have incremented. So I should be incremented to end the while loop because there should be an end condition for a while loop. For every while loop, there should be an end condition. So this was the thing about while loop. We can do different thing with while loop also. We can have always like this is a thing. This should return an true or false statement. Okay, so this was all about looping in Dart. So I think this is very familiar to the Python, Java, and C++ code. So I won't be going in detail in this too. So the second part about loops in Dart is also clear. So the main part for now today's discussion is async and await. So what is an async and await? So as I already told that the Dart is an asynchronous programming language. So that does not wait till the first line of the code has been run. So for example, there is a first line of code. Then it just calls the code and it just jumps to the second line of code, and this does not wait for the completion. But what in case if you want to use the data which comes from the first line in the second line? I'll repeat myself. What in case if we want to use the data which comes from the first line and use it in the second line? So we have to tell the compiler explicitly that yeah, you have to wait for this till the first line of code is empty. You have to till the first line of code has been run. You have to wait. Afterward, you have to come to the second line. So this is where if you have to in some case in use synchronicity in that. So we use async await things. So let us go over the description. Asynchronous operation let your program complete work while waiting for another operation to finish. So this is asynchronous. So if you are fetching a data over a network, writing to a database, or reading a file, anything which requires time, here we require asynchronous await thing. So when we'll be going through the code, I'm pretty sure that it will be very, very clear. So to give to the idea, I just went over the details. So this is an already written program. So this is program is this example shows how not to write a asynchronous Dart code. Remember, it is writing it how not to write an asynchronous code. So before going to this, I would like to suggest what is this, because you guys have seen till now that type should be a string, but what is the future of string? So there's a new term here, future. In Dart, there's a new term called future. Future is something which is going to happen. So, for example, if I say, uh, if it's an asynchronous programming language and there's a function, so it should return something right at the very beginning, because in the second line we are going to use it. What I'm saying is, for example, there are two lines of code. On the first line, the function is returning something, but it's taking time. And the second line, that whatever we got from that first function, we are using it. But if the first function has not been completed, how do we understand that we are going to use it on the second line? So for that, future comes in. So what is future is? Future has different values. First of all, or future is in completion, or it is going on. So future is like, future can be of two types: the completed future or waiting future. So waiting future means it is an ongoing process. Completed future means it will return a string. So future of string means till the time this value hasn't been returned, it will be like instance of future, means the future will be returned. Once this thing is completed, the future will change itself to string. So for example, if function is returning a future of string, that means that the function is taking a bit of time to return the string, and till the time it is returning a string, it is returning a future. I'll repeat it once again. If a function is returning a future, that finally return a string, but it will take some time. So while taking some time, it will always return a future of string. It will return a future of string, but after it gets actual string, it will return a string. So this is the thing I want to make. If future is clear, now we'll get over to this thing. So this is a very basic thing. This is a function of return type string, create order message. So this is a variable of name order, which is taking the value of fetch user order. So this is the function again return. So fetch user order. So once we go over this user order, we see that this is returning a future of string. So we know that there is some complex and slow operation going inside this. So imagine that this function is more complex and slow. So what is returning it? Returning that future dot delayed. So this is a method just to show that it will return a thing after 2 seconds. So what this function will do, for 2 seconds, it will return future of string. After 2 seconds, it will return a string. So this might seem very complex to you in the first time, but this is very useful when we go ahead. So this function is returning a future of string. So after 2 seconds, but this I have deliberately keep this as here future dot delayed const duration 2 seconds. Just understand, don't be overwhelmed after looking at this. Just think of this as it is returning a string after 2 seconds. So this function is intended to do that. It is returning a string after 2 seconds. Till 2 seconds, it has a future. So this gets an fetch order value. This gets an value, and afterward, when we print, you return from this function your order number, whatever it is. So in the main function, we are calling this, and in this is calling this. So what is expected that it should print your order is large latte. But when I run this code, so what it prints is your order is instance of future string. So there is something, because it should be printed is large latte, but it is printing is your order is future of string. So there is something missing in this. So what's missing is that we are not waiting for actual this is. So for example, what this fourth line is returning, obviously problem is here only because the order value is coming as future of instance of future. So there is something that here it is a problem, but what is the problem actually? Now we'll see. So we know that Dart is asynchronous, so it won't be waiting for this future to complete. So fetch user data is returning a future, but we do not know if the future is complete or not. So we have to wait till the time this future gets complete and returns a string. So what we'll write is we'll write here an await keyword. But this shows what forget about the error. What we did here is that we are waiting for this future to complete and return a string. So we know that fetch user data will be returning a string after 2 seconds. Okay. So we are writing here await means, hey compiler, you have to wait till the time this future gets completed and returned as a string. And whenever we are writing an async keyword, we have to write here for whenever we are writing an await keyword, we have to write here async. So okay. So there are three things. Whenever we are going to use an await keyword inside, we have to tell the asynchronous function. Always an asynchronous function should return a string, not because this is also wait now. So future of string. Modifications we did, right? So what modifications we did? We just told the compiler that you have to wait the. So now we know that the function will be waiting. The function is waiting. It should be asynchronous and it should return a future. So now if it is returning a future, if we just run the code, still we print this thing. So now what happened was that actually this message was here, but this function was returning a future and we are writing a future. So we have to write here await also. If we write await, we have to make this as asynchronous. So now once we made this as asynchronous, we're printing that your order is large latte. So I'll hover and explain the code once again. Very carefully listen to this. This is a function which is returning a string after 2 seconds. So this is future of string. In this function, the value of order is set to be a future. So we put await. So this is like variable order the future fetch user order to complete and get a string. Afterward, it's returning your order is whatever the string is. So this function is also waiting returning future of string. Once everything is completed, then only return the string. In because we are using an asynchronous function, we are waiting for this creator message function is waiting for fetch user to complete, and fetch user is completing after 2 seconds. So means we are synchronous behavior to a synchronous behavior. Understand? So this function is waiting for, so main is waiting for this to complete. This is waiting for this to complete, and this is waiting for future to complete. So we are waiting. So how to convert an asynchronous thing to a synchronous? Here async. Okay, I guess here it's clear. If any questions are there, we'll be having that in the. So now let us code the final thing. What we wanted to do here. The final thing was that make a function to fill the data of results as a pass. So for example, this is a class result. So class till now you might be familiar. So the class of result is there's a data called as there's a function which returns as a data. So this is a predefined function which is already given in the problem statement. So it returns a map of key value pairs. So mask the marks of subjects are given as 64, 88, 44, 66, 50. The result is any. So what we have to do is we have to update the result variable as pass or fail. So how do you update it? It is written here. Make a function to fill the data of result as pass if average score is above 40, else fail, and return the updated data. So what we have to do is we have to make a function which uses this get data function to get this data. We have to manipulate this data and check that the average of this 5 is over 40 or less than 40, and whatever it is. Once it is once we get that over 40 or less than 40, we have to update this result wala variable, and afterwards we have. Okay, so we'll write a function as name as what have we written? We have to return the same data. We have written map of string dynamics. So, once I'll write the function and then I'll explain. I'll write the function. Dynamic thing is means there are sometimes when we are not able to decide what will be the second type, the value of. Here the value can be a string, a value can be a string, or so there can be. We are removing the limitations from this. So the first key will be string. The value can be dynamically decided. So we have to return this only. So first of all, we have to call this function. So where data is equal to get data. So the get data is a function of this. But one thing here we need to make sure is that to enhance the encryption, we should make it as private. So when we make it as private, we will be only using it inside the class, not anywhere else. For example, if someone wants to get the old wala data, means where the result is not there, so they can do like print results dot get data. So this is now possible because we are inside the main class, but this should not be actually possible from an external class, right? So if we run this, this code is already been like this. So this is returning the data, right? But whenever we go outside the class or outside the scope of what do we say? Outside the scope of this class, it should not get. So we are doing that. We'll be hovering back here. Okay, so we have the data here. Now what you have to do is we have to get the marks. So where marks? So marks is a list. List is equal to. So from where? From data marks. So now we should understand that marks data type has been set to dynamic because we know that the string can return the map can be returning anything. So we have to explicitly tell that as list of int. So now if we just try to print this thing, let us try. Are we actually getting the marks here? Print marks. Okay, no. Result dot result. So this is actually wrong because this is not returning. For sake of just sake of purpose, we will return the data only here, because every function, if it's returning something, it should return something. We put data here, and this we can see the marks has been printed. So we know that marks function is working well. So what do we know? That we have marks, so we have to now add all the marks. So we'll making a variable where result is equal to, we'll initializing sorry, total. We'll be initializing it with 0. After we'll be hovering over marks, so we have already used marks dot for each. So we have to write result, total. Okay, total plus is equal to element. What we are doing is, for each element we are adding it in the total, and so we'll get the total. So for example, if you are hovering over 5 values, so 5 things will be added here. Now we have to divide it by 5. I am writing it divided by 5, but we should not do that divided by 5. Whatever the length of the list is, we should divide it by that, because we need to get an average here. So we'll write var avg is equal to total divided by 5. Let us try to print this also. What do we get? Let us see first. When we run this, we get 62.4. See, we know it is the guy has passed. So, but now we have to write an if-else statement. So, if-else statements are also same as so we write if average is greater than 40. So we should return data result. We should update it is equal to pass. Else data result is equal to fail, and then we should return the data. Now let us see, is this working? So yeah, we can see that name Elon, customers, marks are this, and result is pass. So now let us go over this. This is a very basic thing. Why we took this thing is that just to refresh over what things we learned and what things you can use. This is a very basic thing to refresh your memory about what you have learned about a session. So we have a method known as get data, which returns the data of an individual. So once we get the data of an individual, we have made our own function which returns some maps of dynamic, which is intended to return and called as result. We have initialized the data as from the get data function. So get data returns the data. We then took what we do, we then took the marks from the data field, and we have to write explicitly as list. And why? Because we do not know that marks is what, because dynamic value, the what we insert, the value is set, values data type has been set to dynamic, so it can be anything. So we have written list of int, because we know it is a list of int. So we have initialized total with 0, then mark we have hovered, or we have what we can say looped over the marks thing, and we have added it to total. Then this is simple thing, we have took the average, and if average is greater than 40, the result is pass. If average is less than 40, the result is fail. So let us try to change the what do we say, um, now let us see if it is pass or fail. So we can see the average was very less. I guess average will be around 64 plus 10 is 74, and 51 35 by 4 is something around 26 something. So less than 40, so it is fail. So the data is coming out to as fail. So I hope we have done our task, completed our task. So this was all about it. This is the basic of that. First of all, we went over the basics, like what is a string, how do we use the data types, and how do we different classes and functions, what is private and public function. Then afterward, we went over loops, for loop, for each loop, and while loop. They were very similar to the other programming languages only. Then the main part was async and await. So how to convert an asynchronous programming language to an synchronous programming language is by using an async and await method. This was very important thing here. So I would say this is the main takeaway from today's session, that this is what we are going to use in Flutter everywhere. What are futures is very important. And finally, we went over a program to just know how the flow of program can be there and thing. So last point, just which I forgot to tell, is this SRP, single responsibility principle, is there. So So responsibility of what is said as in solid principle, that responsibility of this function should be only to get the data. Responsibility of this function should be only to append the data. Responsibility of this function should be just to print the data. So just keep in mind while writing a function as a clean code practice, all functions should have a single responsibility only, and all function should what do we say? Should complete a responsibility which they are taking. So, for example, this is taking a get data, so this should just get the data for us. Nothing else should be done. This is computing the results. This should just compute the result. Nothing else should be done. So I guess yes, this is everything about that which you need to remember, and which is very enough for diving straight into the Flutter session. So next up, we'll be coming with the Flutter session, and very interesting things we'll be doing. So now, if any questions are there or doubts are there, you can just unmute yourself or type it in the chat box. We are very happy to help there.
I guess you're not having any questions. We can wait for say 1 minute, and if no one is there, we can wrap this up.
Yep. Even we can have the questions afterwards also. If you have any queries, you can just contact us directly on our Discord also. So if any questions are there, please feel free to put it in the chat box.